There's a reason why the modern Conservative Party and Conservative politicians aren't very popular in the UK, and that's well symbolised by a figure like Rory Stewart, in that he's not a Conservative at all. He has the opinions and attitude of an upper-middle-class Guardian-reading teacher working in a private school. He's emblematic of a political class which has sold out the Conservative base in the country, which has led to the Keir Starmers of the world, pushes everyone further to the right, and then complains about how it's such a cruel world without realising it's people like him who've created that very world he decries.
I'm noticing a lot of the abuse I'm getting on Twitter at the moment is increasingly about saying I'm not a real man. So the attacks will be, he's a man-child, he's Gollum, he's got a rubber face, and it's incessant.
I get people saying to me, how's your little wimp, Rory Stewart?
There we are, you see?
For what it's worth, listeners and viewers, I think you've got him wrong. I've seen Rory in various situations. I'd back him in a fight against a lot of people. I'm just gonna put that out there.
Thank you, Alistair.
Yeah, sure, Alistair. We all believe that Rory Stewart could take your average builder, or Jim Bro, or even Kemi Badenoch. And herein lies the problem. Even with silly jokes like that, Rory Stewart would say I'm the sort of person that needs to be reprogrammed on some gender equality course because I'm a toxic male. Now, to an extent, I get what he's saying about modern social media. You'll get the most crude and brutal stuff said about your wife, your children, your race, your religion. But come on, did he start using the internet yesterday? This has been bog standard for decades now, and it doesn't matter if you're on the left, the centre, or the right, you're all going to get it. But as you may notice, it's only ever a problem for these people when it affects the liberal elite. They've been calling us evil, racist scumbags who aren't welcome in modern Britain for years. They never think that's a problem. In fact, he goes on to do this in the rest of this clip.
It's revealing, isn't it? Because when journalists get on side of this and say, what fun the right are, how lively they are, what they're not taking into account is that there is an unbelievably unpleasant undercurrent here, which goes well beyond their views on wokery into a very dark conservative vision of how the world should be.
Now, regular viewers might recognise this. It's what I call an appeal to progressive moral theology, or an appeal to an emotion. The idea he's putting forth here is these people are motivated only by evil. They just want to see the world burn. I'm a good, loving, tender, kind and compassionate person. Remember, Rory Stewart's supposed to be a conservative, but in reality he sees a conservative world as dark because he's a liberal. Let's see what he thinks we do so badly.
How do you fight back and win and still say, actually, we do believe humans are equal in rights and dignity. We're not going to support the idea that British nationals who are Muslims are going to be expelled from these countries. And that actually understand that these people may begin by sounding like they're just grumbling about Muslims, but their views on women will be unprintable. Their views on gay people will be unprintable. Their views on anyone who disagrees with them will be unprintable.
Now, we all know Alistair Campbell is something of a Sith Lord. No surprise there. But when it comes to people like Rory Stewart, I'm honestly not sure if he's just that sheltered and detached, whether he cherry picks some tweets from some psycho right-winger on Twitter, or whether he is just genuinely malicious and apprentice to Campbell and willfully lying. Let's take his claims one by one to try and get to the bottom of this. Firstly, he does the classic liberal line of equal rights and dignity. Now, I'm sure you can find again some psycho on Twitter who just hates people, but who seriously, with any position of power on the right, is claiming that people aren't equal, that they don't all have dignity? This is a complete straw man by the liberal left. They use time and time again. Again, it's to narcissistically put themselves in the morally superior position. In essence, rather than deal with reality, they set up a fantasy world in which they're the eternal hero.
We're not going to support the idea that British nationals who are Muslims are going to be expelled from these countries.
This second issue revolves around the deportation question for those who've been involved in grooming gangs with dual nationalities. Why is it moral, Rory, to keep such people in the country? What are they here for? What did we bring them here for in the first place? This is an example of pathological altruism, or as I call it, toxic empathy. People like Rory Stewart are so sheltered they have no survival instinct at all. Of course, on the meta scale of things here, he's part of a liberal elite which have enforced mass immigration and multiculturalism upon us and then calls us evil if we don't want it. And it gets really bizarre with the next claims. Just see if you can spot the cognitive dissonance here.
And that actually understand that these people may begin by sounding like they're just grumbling about Muslims, but their views on women will be unprintable. Their views on gay people will be unprintable. Their views on anyone who disagrees with them will be unprintable.
Now, I have Christian conservative moral opinions, so Rory Stewart's essentially talking about me here. What is it about my opinions on women that are so unprintable? For instance, I believe in traditional gender roles. I believe it's wrong to take toddlers away from the mother. I don't think they should be at work. I think they should be rearing children. I believe in strong families together, and I believe that builds strong nations. What's so evil about that? I believe it's about love and tenderness and building strong and healthy communities. Why is that so evil? When it comes to homosexuals, I don't agree with the LGBTQ woke agenda. I don't believe in marriages in the church. I don't think it's biblical or part of the Western tradition, and I think it undermines the union between masculine and feminine. But outside of that, I have no problem with gays at all. I'll be perfectly nice to them, and always am if I ever meet someone who's gay. Now, apparently these beliefs are unprintable according to Rory, but did you notice who he was defending when he started his monologue? That's right, Muslims. They might have a slightly harder line on the role of women and homosexuals, don't you think? On your screen right now is a map where we have countries highlighted who criminalise homosexuality. The punishments range from years of imprisonment to even death. As you might note, a lot of the Muslim world there seems to be highlighted. But we know what comes back from any liberal when you point this out. They'll say, well, that doesn't count. That's not the real Islam. We have the real Islam in Britain. So what do British Muslims think? Well, this is in The Guardian, so you can hardly accuse me of getting right-wing sources. Half of all British Muslims think homosexuality should be illegal at poll finds from Channel 4. So my views are tamer than half of British Muslims. However, my views are unpublishable, while Rory sees it necessary to defend British Muslims. And it's this hypocrisy that everybody's sick to the back teeth of. We know he'd never have the balls to call this sort of thing out. Yet the most detestable thing is when he states the views of anybody who disagrees with him would be unpublishable. Now, it's true that some people go way overboard and get personal, but he's doing exactly what he's accusing other people of doing, only in a posh, upper-class way, which is much more subtle. Essentially, he's saying dissenting views are so bad they can't be published, ergo, they are evil. You can't even see them. Trust me, I'm the good, virtuous person. This is no different from slurs. It's just a different way of throwing opprobrium, and it works perfectly on the middle-class Guardianistas who are desperate to fit in to the progressive moral theology as they believe it makes them acceptable, good people. As you can see, it's all just opprobrium and smears, and this talk of things being unpublishable is just a precursor to censorship, so Rory Stewart and his ilk can go back to saving the world with their good old Blairite liberalism.
We also need ideas. We do need a plan for growth. We need to explain how we're going to sort out the economy, sort out society, and not just sound like we're apologizing for the fact that nothing can be done. But the one thing that we can't lose is the moral integrity. We cannot lose sight of the values and why they matter.
Oh, Rory. Oh, Rory, my brother in Christ. Can't lose the moral integrity. The lack of self-awareness here is just unreal. People like Rory Stewart have sold out their Conservative base. They lie about their Conservative voters to gain favour with the Liberals and the Guardianistas. They've destroyed this country with mass immigration and then hidden in their ivory tower while chaos descends on the streets. And if that wasn't enough, he then goes on his podcast to preach to a man who backed a war in Iraq that killed 1 million people, that united the Muslim world against the Western world, that provided a vacuum for ISIS to flourish. And then he wants to claim he has the moral integrity. It's just abysmal. However, the silver lining, as always, is people aren't buying this anymore. The play for progressive moral theology is so obvious. Their worldview simply doesn't map on to reality. And that's why people are sick to death of folks like Rory Stewart. Now I'm in the process of building out my Substack, which I'm aiming to be a resource for men, to be the exact opposite of Rory Stewart, ways we can improve personally, politically, spiritually, physically, and so on. Do check that out down below in the description if you're interested. There's all sorts of exclusive content, new things coming on the way there too. In the meantime, do let me know what you think down below, and do consider subscribing to the channel.